Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here. Today, we're going to be covering a BA case study used during interviews. So, intros, some of you guys may be new to this training session. What we typically do is we have a training session once a weekend with various topics that individuals want to talk about in the business analysis domain. I manage a group called Business Analysis Success Path along with Jeet Singh here. Both of us combined have many years in business analysis, in agile project management methodologies, in as a scrum master, as a product owner. Currently, my role is, excuse me, is more along the lines of project management and program management, but I've spent many years as a business analyst. I've spent many years managing business analysts. So both Jeet and I kind of been around this rodeo a few times. So, okay, guys, let's get started. Typically, we spend an hour together. What we're going to be covering today is a business analyst interview for a case study. I'll start talking about that. First, let me share what the case study was.
Sorry, Sarabji, to interrupt you. Thank you for accepting my request for this case study.
You did share with me 4 different case studies, and I picked this one because it seems shortest in length for my own selfish reasons. But there's one more that's a supply chain. So if we have enough interest, we can go back and do that. And guys, case studies take time. So if you are doing this for an interview, make sure you spend sufficient time working on these. I myself in my career have never had to do a case study for an interview, but as I mentioned in my intro, I've worked as a BA, I've managed teams of BAs. So I'm familiar with what it is that we're looking for when we're interviewing BAs. Are you guys able to see my screen properly? I want you guys to kind of read this case study, and if you're not able to, I'll read it out loud, and then we'll go into what I've done for this.
Yeah, we can see this. We can see.
Are you guys able to read this?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll give you guys like 2 minutes to finish, like 1 minute. It's already 7:18. Let's spend just 30 seconds reading this really quickly. And I've highlighted the things that I wanted to pull out. So just spend 30 seconds reading this. I'll time you guys, and then and I've also posted this in the Facebook group for you guys to read. And again, when I post the video of this, I'll try to keep it consolidated so you guys can see this. So with that, let's get started. So what this is typically, I believe, in India more than anywhere else, in the US or anywhere else, I haven't seen people doing case studies for business analyst interviews. I've seen case studies for management consulting positions because I was trying to find, like on YouTube, any recommendations that you would do for case studies for BA interview, and I really couldn't find any. So what that tells me is that it's not the norm anywhere else. I've seen in lots of BA groups that in India, they're requesting you guys to do a case study. So this is kind of my thoughts on it. This is what I would do, having gone through the cycle many times. What I would do if I were to do a case study. So again, really, when you're thinking about it, when they're giving you a case study to do, is to ensure that you have a proper understanding of the business analyst role. They want to know that you can conduct analysis, that you ask the right questions, that you understand the business challenges or the project scope, that you can identify business requirements, that you can identify and document workflows, and that you can handle like half-baked situations. Because as a role of a business analyst, you most of the time don't know all the start and end points, right? That's why the role of a business analyst is so critical, because you need to work with your stakeholders to understand, what the next step is, or why they're trying to implement a project to do something that may already exist. So the goal of the case study is to understand your analytical abilities. It's really not, they're not doing this to you to trick you. They're not trying to see if you can come up with the right or the correct answer, because it doesn't matter. Whatever situation that they're going to give you to analyze and to present back, it's probably a situation that or an issue that they've solved already and they know inside and out. But the goal of giving this to you is not so that you can come up with the right answer, right? And the goal is not for you to give them a technical solution on how to do something. And I emphasize this a lot in my training sessions, is that the role of a BA is not to showcase technically how things need to be done. The role of a BA is to showcase from a business standpoint what the business needs are. So I'll stop right there for any questions that you guys may have before we continue.
So the main aim of this case study is to see you have a good understanding about the business analyst role, and to try to test out your experience with respect to the business analyst role on pointing out the right problem and getting out the possible solutions when you are presented with the scenario. Right?
Absolutely.
And, right. Okay.
Absolutely. It's to make sure that, in most of the business cases or case studies, there's more than one problem that's presented there. And what they've said in all the ones that I've seen is, identify one business problem and solve it, or tell us how it would be solved, right?
Right.
So what they're trying to do is they're giving you a bunch of problems, and they're trying to figure out if you can even pick up on what one of the issues is.
Would like to ask, like, if the client is from technical background, and as per your suggestions, we should emphasize on describing or understanding through business scenario what are the needs and challenges, how to match the path with, in this case, like if he's coming from technical background and he or she would like to understand the scenario or case studies in technical manners.
So if your client is a little bit more technical and you're filling the role of a business analyst and a systems analyst, then I would try to identify technologies that you could be using.
Perfect.
as part of your recommendations.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So if no more questions, we'll continue. So how best to represent yourself in these case studies? Try to understand the problem at hand. As I mentioned, in all the case studies, there were more than one issue that was presented and highlighted. So try to understand what the problem is. Understand and document the current systems or as-is business processes. That's the key, you guys. As a business analyst, you guys have to understand and know how to document the as-is. And then the second is understand and document future state to be business processes. Again, if you can understand how the system or what business processes are today and what the future state is or what the goal is, you've done 50% or more than 50% of your work or analysis as a business analyst. If you can get those 2 points correct, and again, when I say correct, is just put it on paper and present it to them. You will not represent the business processes completely, right? Because you're not in their shoes during the interview. What you're trying to do is, based on what's given to you, try to document what you're seeing on a piece of paper. And everybody will take a different approach, right? So there's no right or wrong answer. You just need to showcase your ability to take something from a piece of paper and put it on either workflow diagrams or steps as you understand them. So does that make sense? Okay, got it. So once you try to identify from the case study what the current business is and then what the future state looks like, then try to document requirements that are coming out of it. Try to create prototypes. Prototypes are easy from a UI standpoint. Images or like screenshots that you could think would look like what the client or the business is trying to find. And again, when you create prototypes, it's a way of validation that, to make sure that what you're thinking and what you've understood is the right approach. And the last thing I said is ask. If you understand and identify the correct problem, which is validation, right? And again, when you're going in for these interviews and you're requested to do this, typically I think they give you a week to prepare these things. And if you're able to go back and ask some questions about the case study, do it. If you're not able to, then try to present as best as you can. Okay, Any more questions about like the organization and how to prepare yourself before we dive deep into this? So with that, let's talk about this organization. It was called the XYZ Nonprofit Organization. So what they say is that we're based out of the US. It's a nonprofit organization serving old people worldwide to alleviate social isolation, which is a real problem, you guys. If we can figure out how to solve this issue, we'll do really good in the world. So if you guys have some free time, let's figure out how to solve this. So the next bullet point is the organization also has a pool of volunteers, social workers from across the globe associated via various outreach programs. So the reason why I highlight volunteers and social workers is because they're a basic input into our business problem. And the goal of this case study was that the client wants to develop a modern, robust, and responsive software solution that will help the internal staff. I highlight the internal staff because they're our customers, right? Or the staff that is reporting, that works for the XYZ nonprofit organization, to manage the associated old age people. Old age people here are our customers, and volunteers and social workers. These are people that work for the organization. So again, a volunteer and social worker activity program wise, which includes their onboarding into the organization, their eligibility to participate or contribute which program is specific. So I just copied and pasted it. So the grammar wise, it doesn't make sense. But so where do you start? So, you know, they give you a case study, you read it and you read it over and over again. What do you do from there? So where do you start? So I said, read the case study until you know it by heart, read it again, create a document and create and document assumptions. So this is really important, you guys, right? In any project that you work on, there's always assumptions. But if you're working on a case study, this is like the land of make-believe, right? Like I've said before, there's no right or wrong answer when you're presenting a case study, right? So you have to create assumptions that kind of guide you into your analysis, right? So if you say, and I've made assumptions here, which we'll cover. So it's really important when you're doing this case study to document all of your assumptions and not just have them in your head, because when you're documenting them and presenting them, when you're presenting the case study, that helps your listeners or your interviewers understand that you actually thought about this. And here's something that you've kind of outlined, and it's, you know, outside of the scope either for this project, or this is how you're analyzing the situation or the issue at hand. So document assumptions and present them as part of your case study for sure. And if you can ask questions about the case study, ask questions. If you have email access and if they allow you to ask questions, I would take advantage of that. And then the most important thing is start somewhere, right? Like just start somewhere. Don't just sit on it until the very last day, because so the question. Okay, cool. Thank you. So the assumptions here are the current system is not web-based or centralized. These are my things that I jotted down when I was trying to create this, right? Data is entered manually by end users. People registered are our customers, our volunteers, our social workers, and programs. So all four of these things which are input to what XYZ organization does is data that's entered manually by XYZ organization employees. Programs and events are published via postal mail. Volunteers and social workers only provide the service of transport to local programs. So do you guys understand what I did? I just, reduce the scope so that I can actively and accurately kind of outline what is happening here. So I've said, so what I've done is overall, I said the input, as I highlighted when I was documenting this here, are you have the XYZ organization, you have volunteers that go into it, you have social workers, and then you have local programs or departments. So I think lots of states in the United States, and I know lots of nonprofit organizations have programs for the elderly population. And I think what I gathered is what this organization does, or from my assumption, they link these programs for people, for the elderly crowd, and then they have volunteers and social workers that maybe provide the service of transport to them. So here's the overall, like, this is my as-is workflow that I worked on. So we'll go over this in a little bit, but the overall organization is you have volunteers, you have social workers, and then you have local programs or departments that are all interacting with the XYZ organization. And as a service, this XYZ organization is servicing our elderly crowd. Everybody understand that? Okay.
So all the programs cater in serving the old people. That is what you're trying to tell me, right?
Yeah. So local departments, and so these, from my understanding, local programs and departments are probably statewide, like at the state level. So there's probably lots of programs out there, but what I'm saying is maybe XYZ organization is an organization that tries to get these old people to attend these programs, right? Because when, let's say, if in the scenario where the state or a country has lots of these programs, they're just focused on having these programs. And maybe this organization, XYZ organization, is trying to, with their volunteers and social workers, trying to provide transport so people can actually attend those programs, right? So in my assumptions, I said that what the goal of XYZ organization, or what these volunteers and social workers do, is they provide transport to local programs. So then if we continue on that thought process, here's what the as-is would look like. Are you guys able to see clearly? And if not, I'll try to make it a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
it's good.
Okay, cool. So I have start here. We have, and I'll go through all of these. When you have start, you have customers that register. So from customers are our elderly crowd. I didn't want to call them old people over and over again in our workflows and documentation. So customers are our elderly crowd that is the beneficiary of the organization. Okay, so customers register with XYZ organization. Then also you have volunteers that fill out applications. You also have social workers that fill out the application, and then you have local programs that that we are wanting our customers to attend. So from all of these these are all the inputs that XYZ organization is getting. Okay, from there the output is that XYZ manually enters data into a system. So all the applications that come from our customers, our volunteers, our social workers, our local programs. This is all data that is added manually into the XYZ system. Then manually, XYZ organization manually match customer to local programs. So based on where the local program is and where our customers have told us that they're located, they manually match these programs to our customers. Match customers to local programs, send out a mail to RSVP for the event. So let's say I, Sarabjit, have filled out an application to be a volunteer in Sacramento, California, which is where I live. And there's a local program 2 months from now in Sacramento, California. Okay, sorry. So let's say I'm the customer. I'm the person that that's registered with XYZ organization to attend these local events as somebody that lives in Sacramento, California. So what XYZ would say is, okay, they'll find or look for all local events that are happening in my county or my area, like let's say 10 to 15 mile radius, and they'll match me. So they'll send me, at this point, they'll send me a piece of letter, because with the elderly crowd, you typically communicate. They're not very tech savvy, so I just use mail for now. We'll talk about other forms of communication later. So when they match me with a local program in Sacramento, California, I'll get a piece of mail and say, hey, Sarabjit, we have a local program. Can you please RSVP for the event? So if I say yes, I'm attending, I'll move over to this. And if I say no, I'm not able to attend, then they'll go back and they'll try to match somebody else in Sacramento, or maybe this happens in batches, I don't know. But this was my thought process when I was creating this. So if I say I am attending, if I say if I am attending this event, then they'll manually match RSVP customer to a volunteer or social worker. So once I've said yes, I can attend this event that's happening 2 months from now, then they'll match me with a volunteer or a social worker that's also in my vicinity. They'll call the social worker or the volunteer to confirm availability. If I can attend, hold on. So if I cannot attend, they'll try to match somebody else. If I can attend, there should be a yes over here. They'll update the database to match a customer to a social worker. They'll send the customer info via mail about the event, plus the volunteer or the social worker that'll be taking me to the event, and that's where we end the process. So from my standpoint, this is how I understood the system to be. I'll stop right here for questions.
Okay, so I have a question here.
Yeah.
It's like from your previous understanding and assumption, the access flow comes up combining your understanding with assumptions. Is my understanding true?
Yeah. Well, yes, because you're basing your understanding off of a piece of paper or the scenario that they've given to you, right? And that's why it's important to document assumptions, because as you're reading it, you're creating assumptions in your mind. And if you document and present them, like if I didn't say, if the last bullet point was not my assumption, volunteers and social workers only provide service of transport to local programs, then this whole diagram would not be valid.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And also, don't be afraid to document your assumptions in your flow diagram. So where Sarjeet has put manually match customers to local programs, if you want to insert assumptions, you can annotate with dash lines that the match radius is, let's say, 7 miles. So that gives more clarity. So everything is in one place. You can annotate a lot of information in your as-is workflows. And so when you provide this back and you have your as-is, your future state, you can improve upon that. So it's okay to annotate assumptions, thoughts, questions. Even questions are okay in workflow as long as you document them properly. And then you can answer your questions in your future state. So if you're doing that, the person reviewing your work will see that you are thinking about different areas of how the workflow can be impacted.
Creating these workflows, typically if you are working as a business analyst, you'll be using tools such as Microsoft Visio. To create these diagrams, I use a tool called draw.io, which is free and basic. So you can create these types of workflows to showcase. You can also create them in PowerPoint, but using tools like draw.io to create these workflow diagrams makes it a little bit easier and polished. So our case study is right here. So they say the business challenges, the client is facing efficiency gap with the current system, which requires data entry and does not efficiently manage the different data sets. The end users using the application do not want to use the current system and is looking for a well-designed new application with ease of use. The internal staff using the system is not very tech savvy as well. The client needs cost-effective, robust, and reliable software that can provide an effective solution for managing old age people, volunteers, social workers, departments, and programs. Client also wants the new system to generate reports for senior management, which will optimize analysis and strategize, leading to better decision-making. So some of the outputs that they're looking for when you're presenting this case study is to identify the processes which are required for functioning the business, pick one process and do the following. They wanted us to create a business process diagram, which is what we've done. Describe the business process diagram. We can create some verbiage around what what that is. Write business rules, write functional requirements, identify the modules required to be developed in the expected software, pick any of the sub-process of the module and write user stories or case studies, user story or use case, and then create a prototype of one complete process, okay? So let's go back here. Let's say identify and process.
That is my approach. Probably if there is a better one, you can recommend it.
No, absolutely. So what they're saying, again, going back and looking at the case study, you want to document the business rules or business requirements, right? What is it that the client is looking for? And once you define what those business rules are, only then can you create to-be workflows, right? Because how else, if you don't know what the client is or the customer is looking for, how can you create a future state system? So you're absolutely right. So instead of jumping into to-be, let's document business requirements. Okay. So business requirements is they're looking for an end-to-end solution, right?
Yes.
What's another business requirement that you guys saw from the case study? I saw reports. What else did you guys see? Easier mode of communication for all end users. End users are our customers.
And smoother registration for end users in the application too.
Yes. Easy mode of application.
Easy mode application for the customers to become a part of the application.
Easy mode.
Of the
say that one more time.
No, actually seamless, or easy user interface for the customers to get registered with the XYZ organization through web.
Easy interface for customers to register with the organization?
Yeah, through web.
Okay, what else? What else did you guys see?
Automate the process so as to manual registrations.
Automated process for what?
To avoid manual registrations.
Yeah. Okay, that would be part of here. Manual work, right? Manual data entry. What else? Is your mode of communication. So can we talk about communication? What communication could be via email? Communication could be via online portal, right? Like / notifications. And what else?
If it, say for example, if it is a mobile app also, then we can also think of push notifications.
Okay. How else? So registration / matching logic for volunteers.
And one more to add, say for example, if any event is updated in the application, irrespective of web app or mobile app, that can actually be synced with the mobile calendars of each and every customers, and that can come as a notification in sometimes say 15 minutes earlier, or just giving a reminder to the customers.
So synced calendar for cancellations / updates for customers. Okay, what else? And again, this is a lot of make believe, you guys, so that you have the ability to kind of create anything. So if you were documenting or creating a system like this, what else would you want? How about for XYZ? Because it seems like they said a few times that they need to match eligibility criteria for the people attending. So for their customers, as well as volunteers and social workers. So our elderly crowd is very vulnerable. So you don't want like ex-con like criminals taking care of them, right? So there's a matching logic. So when I guess volunteers and social workers are applying, we need to check their background to make sure they don't have a criminal background. So how can so that's
Yeah, there is, for this situation, I think we can actually take some time for background verification. Say whenever the user gets once applies for the registration, then we can have an update in the web application like background verification. And once the background verification is done, then we can move the status to that verified, and then they can be an officially as a part of the web or application or mobile application as a part of the representing the organization as a customer.
Absolutely. So now you guys see, now that we started thinking about this, there's a few things that we can dive deep on, right? So
yeah.
In the case study, they say, let me find my case study. They say pick one process. So which one process do you guys want to dive deep on next weekend? And what I'll do is I'll try to do homework and I'll have a starting point. But the reason I like to do these training sessions is because it's interactive, right? So let's pick one business process that we're going to dive deep on. And next week when we pick this up, because there's only 5 minutes left, we can go into detail and creating all of the requirements that are needed for us to submit this case study. So which one of these processes, each of these will take, have their own detailed steps that we wanted to follow in the system. So pick one from here and we'll dive deep on that next week. Does that sound fair to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so let's vote, you guys. Which one sounds more interesting and complicated at the same time, so we can try to solve this problem for them?
It's the first one, most probably, I think, like implementation.
That's the first one. If we do that, then I don't think that we can detail out a lot of this one includes all of them. This is the overarching goal.
Why not we actually focus on reporting ability for senior management or probably like the registration?
This one?
I think the reporting, the first one right now, reporting ability for senior management.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you guys need to understand, in order to do the reporting, you have to thoroughly think through the rest of it. So for this, I think number 4, registration and matching, will give us several work streams that we can focus on of what is, and at this point, since we're making this up, we can come up with an as-is registration form, how to make that better, how does that system feed, how does that vary from volunteer intake form, and how do we match? So we can now, since this is land make believe, I think that will give us more work streams that we can focus on and come up with. If we want to do wireframes, we can do a lot of workflows with that, and we can come up with business logics around number 4. So I think for everyone to understand what we're doing here, I think that would be a good starting point for us.
Yeah.
Makes sense, yes.
Yeah.
I
think number 4, 5, and 6 are all good. But again, I leave it up to you guys on what you guys want to focus on.
Yeah, I go with, if it was Jeet was speaking earlier, I think probably, I think 4 would be the ideal starting point to drill down with the rest of the things. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay. Sounds good. We have a game plan for next week, you guys. So it is 7:58 right now. Any questions on what we went through today? Any final thoughts? Anything that you guys like to see for next week? Do you want me to do this? Do you want me and G to spend time creating this, or do you guys want to do it together?
It would be good if we are doing it together. This is my opinion, my suggestion.
Okay. So then it will take us more than one session. So this will be in the series of.
Or if we can do it this way, we can have it ready, and if you could share your thought process, then that would also be good.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is, what I did for this week is, I started and talked about what to do, kind of the process, and I had some stuff, but then we worked on some things together. So let's do that. We'll get started. We'll present our thoughts, but then what I don't want to do is so I presented this, so now this is stuck with you guys, right? But if we do it together, then like we did this, then that's when you start to think and you start to, understand it a lot more. So what maybe Jeet and I will do for next week is try to create a framework for around this, and then we'll work on it together on, hey, this is why you should start this. So we'll have like a framework ready for you guys, but then we'll do majority of it together. Does that sound like a good plan to everyone?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
And
awesome.
in the meantime, everyone take some time and think through the process of what registration would look like. So when we gather, everyone comes prepared with ideas, so we can work through it and understand which is better versus something we were thinking versus what you guys were thinking. So take the time, think of registration, how you see the workflow of it. Think of how you would handle a volunteer versus a customer. So think through some of those scenarios so we can come together and review them and create a new one based on your input.
Why don't we do this? I think, why don't we, you guys work on this independently and post it in the group. The group is called Business Analyst Success Path. And, it'll be fun for you guys to try to do this on your own and post in the group. And for those people that, haven't joined, but they're seeing all these things, it would be, curious for them to use it as a learning opportunity. So if you have the time, do this on your own, post it in the group. Jeet and I will take a look at it, and then we'll also meet you guys next week with a framework, and we'll try to get as far as we can. And again, we do training every weekend anyway, so if it takes us 2 or 3 sessions to complete this, then I think it's worth it, because I want you guys, Jeet and I really want you guys to have a good framework on how to do this.
Definitely, yeah. It's a very good start for this. Thank you so much.
Yeah. These slides I will post in the group along with the recorded video, so you guys can go back to it.
Sure, yeah.
That's good. All right, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. If you have any time left, be safe out there. Please don't go out if you don't need to with all this COVID-19 going on. Stay safe, keep your families safe, and please pray that we all come out of this stronger and